2 months after the Battle of Earth, the human fleet struck its first target deep in Vraxel space. The Vraxel military base at Kepler Station had stood for 200 years. It was a massive complex built into an asteroid, housing supplies and weapons for the entire outer rim of the Empire. The Vraxel considered it impregnable, hidden deep behind their defensive lines. They were wrong. Captain Minho Choi led 20 ships in the raid. They jumped into the system phase-shifted, completely invisible to Vraxel sensors. The aliens had no idea they were under attack until Minho's ships materialized right on top of the supply convoy. The battle lasted 15 minutes. The Vraxel freighters, unprotected and slow, were sitting targets. Minho captured 3 intact vessels loaded with advanced shield technology and destroyed the rest. By the time Vraxel reinforcements arrived, the human ships had already jumped away. It was the first of many strikes. Admiral Do-Yun Kim had divided the fleet into smaller hunter-killer groups. Each group operated independently, hitting Vraxel targets across their empire. Supply depots, communication stations, repair facilities. Nothing was safe. The humans avoided civilian targets. This was not about genocide. It was about breaking the Vraxel military machine so completely that they could never threaten Earth again. On Vraxis Prime, the Vraxel homeworld, panic spread through the government. The High Council met in emergency session for the 10th time that month. Grand Admiral Vexthar stood before them, his face grim. "We have lost 17 supply bases, 12 communication hubs, and 8 major shipyards," he reported. "The humans are systematically dismantling our military infrastructure. We cannot stop them because we cannot see them coming." A council member stood, his voice shaking with rage. "How is this possible? We are the Vraxel Empire. We rule 47 star systems. How can one primitive species do this to us?" Vexthar's response was brutal in its honesty. "Because they are not primitive. They never were. We assumed they were weak based on outdated intelligence. That assumption has cost us everything." The council erupted in arguments. Some wanted to negotiate peace. Others demanded total mobilization, conscripting every able-bodied Vraxel into the military. A few even suggested using the forbidden planet-killer weapons. While the Vraxel argued, humanity continued its campaign. Lieutenant Jiwan Lee had become the most valuable intelligence officer in human history. From her command center on Earth, she coordinated the entire operation. Every Vraxel communication, every fleet movement, every secret transmission passed through her systems. She had learned something interesting from the captured data. The Vraxel Empire was not as unified as it appeared. Several species had been conquered and enslaved by the Vraxel over the centuries. These vassal species hated their masters. Jiwan brought this information to Admiral Kim. "Sir, we have an opportunity. If we can contact these enslaved species and offer them freedom, they might rebel. We could tear the Empire apart from within." Do-Hyun studied the data carefully. "Do it. Reach out to them. Tell them that humanity remembers what it's like to fight for freedom. Tell them we'll help them win theirs." The results were immediate. 3 vassal species declared independence within a week. They rose up against their Vraxil overlords, forcing the Empire to divert military resources to put down the rebellions, resources they desperately needed to fight humanity. Meanwhile, humanity made first contact with other alien civilizations. The Kelnar Consortium, a peaceful alliance of trading species, reached out to Earth with a proposal. Their ambassador arrived at Unity 1 station, where Admiral Kim met him. The Kelnar were tall, thin beings with silver skin and large eyes. They spoke through translation devices in melodic voices. "We have watched your conflict with the Vraxil," the ambassador said. "For centuries, they have bullied and threatened the peaceful species of this region. We are grateful someone finally stands against them." He paused. "We wish to offer an alliance. Technology exchange, trade routes, diplomatic support." Do-Hyun was cautious. "The last aliens who came to Earth brought war. Why should we trust you?" The Kelnar ambassador understood. "Because we do not seek to conquer or control. We seek only peace and mutual benefit. The Vraxil are a threat to all of us. If they defeat you, they will grow bold. If you defeat them, the galaxy becomes safer for everyone." After much debate, Earth agreed to the alliance. The Kelnar provided access to their hyperspace beacon network, allowing human ships to travel even faster between systems. They also shared medical technology and resources to help Earth rebuild. In exchange, humanity offered protection. Human warships began patrolling Kelnar space, deterring pirates and raiders. It was humanity's first step toward becoming a galactic power. Not all the battles went smoothly. At Wolf 359, a Vraxel counterattack nearly destroyed the human dreadnought Retribution. The ship was trapped by superior numbers, its shields failing under concentrated fire. Dr. Yoonji Park was aboard the Retribution, overseeing field tests of new weapons. When the ship came under attack, she made a desperate decision. She ordered the phase shift drive overloaded. "Doctor, that will tear a hole in space-time," the captain protested. "It could kill us all. And if we don't, the Vraxel will kill us anyway," Yoonji replied. "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." The phase shift drive overloaded exactly as planned. It created a localized space-time rupture that swallowed 12 Vraxel ships and spat them out scattered across the system, their crews disoriented and helpless. The Retribution survived with heavy damage but made it back to friendly space. Yoonji's desperate gambit became a new tactic. Phase rupture generators were installed on other ships, giving humanity another weapon in their arsenal. 4 months into the campaign, Captain Minho led a daring raid on Vraxel Outpost Gamma 7, a fortress built into a moon orbiting a gas giant. The outpost coordinated Vraxil fleet movements across 3 sectors. Major Hana Song commanded the Marine Assault Team. She was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion, tough as nails and absolutely fearless. When Minho breached the outpost's outer defenses, Hana led 500 Marines inside. The battle inside the outpost was brutal. Close quarters combat in narrow corridors. The Vraxil were larger and stronger than humans, but humans were faster and more adaptable. Hana's Marines used tactics the aliens had never seen, turning the outpost's own defenses against its defenders. After 6 hours of fighting, the outpost fell. Hana personally captured the Vraxil commander and secured the base's computer systems. The intelligence gathered revealed the locations of 3 more major Vraxil military hubs, but the intelligence also revealed something more disturbing. The Vraxil were preparing a doomsday option. If they couldn't win, they planned to use planet-killer weapons on human colonies. Lieutenant Jiwon brought the news to Admiral Kim. "Sir, the Vraxil are getting desperate. If we don't end this war soon, they might do something insane." Do-hyun looked at the tactical map. Human forces had pushed deep into Vraxil territory. They had destroyed or captured hundreds of enemy ships. They had liberated 3 enslaved species. They had won every major engagement. But the war wasn't over. As long as the Vraxil High Council remained in power, as long as their homeworld remained untouched, they would keep fighting. Do-hyun made his decision. "Recall all hunter-killer groups. Bring the entire fleet together. We're going to end this." "End it how, sir?" Jiwon asked, though she already suspected the answer. Do-hyun pulled up a star chart. At the center of Vraxil space, one planet glowed red. "We're going to Vraxis Prime. We're going to force their surrender on their own homeworld." The room fell silent. What Do-hyun was proposing was the most dangerous operation of the entire war. Vraxis Prime was the most heavily defended planet in the Empire. Hundreds of warships, thousands of defense platforms, planetary shields. It would make the Battle of Earth look like a small skirmish. Captain Minho spoke first. "I'm in. The Indomitable is ready. The phase rupture generators will give us an advantage," Yoonji added. "And I have one more surprise. Something I've been working on." She pulled up schematics for a massive device. "I call it the Ghostmaker. It can phase shift an entire fleet at once. We could move 200 ships right into the heart of their defenses before they even know we're there." Do-hyun studied the plans. It was risky. If the Ghostmaker failed, the entire fleet would be exposed and surrounded. But if it worked, how long to build it? He asked. 3 weeks. "Maybe 4. You have 2, Do-hyun said. "Every day we wait is another day the Vraxil have to prepare those planet killers." Yoonji nodded. She didn't sleep much anyway. 2 weeks later, the human fleet gathered at a secret staging area just outside Vraxil space. 200 warships, veterans of dozens of battles, Marines who had fought in the ruins of alien bases, pilots who had survived impossible odds. They were ready for the final battle. Admiral Kim addressed the fleet one last time before the attack. 6 months ago they came to Earth. They thought we were weak. They thought they could break us. They were wrong. Now we go to their home. We go to show them that humanity does not forgive. We do not forget, and we do not lose." He paused, looking at the faces on the screens, young and old, scared and determined. For Earth, for every life they took. We finished this today. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Destination Vraxis Prime, the Vraxil homeworld. The Vraxil flagship exploded from the inside out. Captain Minho Choi had materialized the Indomitable directly inside the command bridge, and the phase shift weapons tore through everything. Thexazal died instantly, along with his entire command staff. The ship's core went critical seconds later, turning the massive vessel into an expanding ball of fire and debris. Minho phase shifted out just before the explosion, his ship flickering back into normal space a safe distance away. Flagship down, he reported calmly, moving to secondary targets. But Minho's attack was just the opening move. The moment the human fleet decloaked, every ship opened fire at once. The Vraxil found themselves surrounded by enemies that shouldn't exist, using weapons they had never seen before. Railgun slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through Vraxil shields like they were paper. The aliens had designed their shields to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Each impact released enough energy to cripple a warship. Then the kinetic kill swarms activated. 3 million microdrones that the Vraxil had dismissed as space junk suddenly came alive. Their tiny engines fired, accelerating them to 30% light speed. They swarmed the alien fleet like angry bees. Each drone was small, but at that speed, mass didn't matter. They hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Hundreds of drones slammed into each Vraxil ship, punching holes through armor, destroying weapon systems, crippling engines. The Vraxil tried to fight back, but they were in chaos. Their flagship was gone. Their commander was dead, and they were surrounded by an enemy that seemed to know exactly how to hurt them. The second in command, an officer named Zixora, tried to rally the fleet. All ships return fire. Target the human vessels. But before the Vraxil could coordinate their response, Lieutenant Jiwan Lee pressed a button in her command center back on Earth. The virus she had planted in the Vraxil communication network activated. Across the alien fleet, navigation systems went haywire. Ships that tried to jump to hyperspace found their drives failing catastrophically. Some ships jumped into each other, their coordinates scrambled. Others had their engines overload and explode. The Vraxil's own technology had become their enemy. Jiwan watched the chaos on her screens and smiled coldly. "How does it feel?" she whispered. "How does it feel to be helpless?" In the first 3 minutes of battle, 50 Vraxil warships were destroyed. In the next 10 minutes, 60 more were crippled beyond repair. The once mighty fleet that had bombed Earth with such confidence was being torn apart. Admiral Do-Yun Kim watched from the command center of his dreadnought, the Defiance. He felt no joy in the slaughter, only a cold satisfaction. This was justice. This was what happened when you attacked Earth. Target their engines and weapons systems, he ordered. Disable them first, destroy them second. I want prisoners. I want intelligence. Dr. Yoonji Park's phase shift torpedoes proved to be devastatingly effective. Unlike normal missiles that had to get past shields and armor, these weapons simply materialized inside the target. They appeared in engine rooms, in weapon bays, in command centers. The Vraxil had no defense against them. One Vraxil captain, watching his ship die around him, sent a desperate message to the rest of the fleet. His voice was filled with disbelief and terror. They were supposed to be primitive. The scan said they were primitive. How do they have this technology? The answer was simple. The Vraxil had based their invasion on old information. They had scanned Earth decades ago and assumed nothing had changed. They had seen a species just beginning to explore space and assumed they would still be weak. They were wrong. Fatally wrong. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing for this exact scenario. While the Vraxil were confident in their superiority, humans had been working, building, innovating. They had taken their natural creativity and aggression and focused it all on one goal: survival. And now the Vraxil were paying the price for their arrogance. Commander Zixora, now in charge of what remained of the fleet, made a desperate decision. "All ships, emergency retreat! Jump to hyperspace immediately." Some ships tried to obey. Their hyperspace drives spun up, creating the familiar distortions that preceded a jump. But Jiwan's virus was still at work. Half the ships that attempted to jump simply exploded, their drives overloading. Others jumped to random coordinates scattered across space. Only 44 ships managed to escape. Out of 200 that had arrived so confidently 3 days ago, only 44 limped away into hyperspace. damaged and terrified. The rest were dead or captured. Captain Minho returned to the fleet, his ship scratched but intact. All targets in my sector neutralized, Admiral. Requesting permission to pursue the retreating ships. Do-Yun considered it. Part of him wanted to let them go, to let them carry the message back to their empire. But another part, the part that had lost everything in New Seoul, wanted complete victory. Negative, Captain. Let them run. They'll tell their masters what happened here. They'll tell them what happens when you attack Earth. He paused. Besides, we're going after them anyway. Just not yet, the battle was over in 6 hours. Earth's orbit was filled with debris and wrecked alien ships. Human boarding parties were already moving through the disabled vessels, securing prisoners and gathering intelligence. The human fleet had taken losses too. 15 dreadnoughts were destroyed and 30 more were damaged. But compared to the Vraxel losses, it was nothing. Humanity had won the first battle decisively. On Earth's surface, people watched the battle through telescopes and broadcasts. When they saw the alien fleet break and run, the planet erupted in celebration. People danced in the streets. They cried with relief and joy. After 3 days of terror and grief, they finally had hope, but Admiral Kim wasn't celebrating. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at the wreckage floating in space. Each piece of debris represented someone who had died. Alien or human, they were all dead because of this war. Lieutenant Jiwon joined him, her face tired but satisfied. "We did it, sir. We beat them." "No," Do-Hyun said quietly. "We won a battle. The war is just beginning." He pulled up a star map showing Vraxel territory, 47 star systems, hundreds of colonies, their homeworld, Vraxis Prime. The survivors will return to their empire and report what happened. The Vraxel will regroup. They'll come back with more ships, better prepared. He looked at Jiwon. "We can't let that happen." Jiwon understood immediately. "You want to take the fight to them." "I want to end this war before it destroys us both," Do-Hyun said. "They came here thinking we were weak. They were wrong. Now we need to make sure they never threaten Earth again." He opened a fleet-wide channel. All across the human armada, crews stopped what they were doing to listen to their admiral. "Today we defended our home. We showed the Vraxil that humanity is not prey. But this is not over. Those ships that escaped will return with reinforcements. We cannot wait for them to come back stronger." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We have their navigation data. We know where they came from. We know where their bases are, where their supply lines run, where their homeworld sits." Another pause. "The Vraxil brought war to our doorstep. Now we're going to finish it at theirs." A cheer went up across the fleet. The crews were exhausted, hurt, grieving, but they were also angry. The Vraxil had murdered billions of humans. Someone had to pay for that. Do-Hyun continued. "We will repair our ships. We will rescue our wounded. We will honor our dead. And then we will do something no one expects. We will go on the offensive. We will hunt them across the stars. We will make the Vraxil Empire regret they ever heard the name Earth." Captain Minho listened to the Admiral's speech and smiled. His hand rested on the controls of the Indomitable. The ship had performed perfectly in battle. Now it would perform even better in the hunt to come. Dr. Yoonji was already planning improvements to the phase shift weapons. They had worked well, but they could work better. She would make sure the next generation would be even more deadly. And Lieutenant Jiwon was analyzing the data from captured Vraxil computers. She now had complete maps of their empire, their military strength, their weaknesses. She would use that knowledge to tear their civilization apart from the inside. The Vraxil had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened something dangerous. They had reminded humanity of an old truth. Humans were not the peaceful species the aliens had assumed. Humans were survivors. Humans were fighters. And when threatened, humans became the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The hunt was about to begin, and this time the Vraxil were the prey. The 72 hours began to count down. On Earth's surface, the world mourned. Rescue teams dug through the ruins of New Seoul, Sao Paulo, Cairo, and Mumbai, looking for survivors. There weren't many. The alien weapons had been thorough. Millions of bodies would never be found, simply vaporized in the initial strikes. But while the world grieved, a different kind of activity happened in the shadows. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, beyond Pluto, beyond where most people even thought about, something awakened. Secret facilities that had been hidden behind holographic asteroids for 3 decades came to life. Men and women who had spent years in isolation, preparing for a war that might never come, suddenly had their purpose. Dr. Yoonji Park stood in the main laboratory of Research Station, Omega. She hadn't slept in 48 hours. Her eyes were red and her hands shook from too much coffee, but she refused to rest. "How long until the phase shift drives are ready for combat?" she asked her assistant. 12 hours, Doctor. We're installing them on the first wave of ships now." The assistant hesitated. "Are you sure they'll work?" "We've never tested them in actual battle." Yoonji turned to look at him. Her face was hard. "They'll work. They have to work." She pulled up a hologram showing the phase shift technology. "These drives put our ships slightly out of normal space-time. To the Vraxil, we'll be invisible, ghosts. And when we materialize inside their shields, inside their ships." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Meanwhile, Captain Minho Choi was doing something he never thought he'd do. He was boarding a ship that technically didn't exist. The Indomitable was beautiful in a deadly way. It was smaller than the Vraxil warships, but packed with technology that would make their shields look like toys. Minho ran his hand along the hull as he walked up the boarding ramp. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" A technician grinned at him. "Full phase shift capability, quantum torpedoes, and the best part? She can materialize inside enemy ships." Minho smiled grimly. "Perfect, because I'm going to take her right into the Vraxil flagship." The technician's smile faded. "Sir, that's suicide." "No," Minho said quietly. "That's revenge." Lieutenant Ji-Won Lee was in her element. She sat surrounded by computer screens, her fingers flying across keyboards. She had spent 3 days breaking into the Vraxil communication network. It had been hard but not impossible. The aliens were arrogant. They never thought primitive humans could crack their codes. They were wrong. Ji-Won had not only broken their encryption, she had done something even better. She had created a virus, a beautiful, deadly piece of code that would spread through the Vraxil neural network like a disease. When activated, it would turn their own systems against them. "Admiral Kim needs to see this," she said to herself. She packaged the virus and sent it to the command center. Then she leaned back and allowed herself a small smile. "Let's see how you like it when your own ships betray you." Admiral Do-hyun Kim watched everything from the rebuilt command center. Earth's remaining defense forces were staging fake desperate defenses, making it look like humanity was on the edge of collapse. It wasn't hard to act desperate. The grief and anger were real enough. But behind the scenes, the real preparation continued. 120 dreadnoughts were moving into position. They traveled in phase shift mode, invisible to every sensor the Vraxil had. It would take them 60 hours to reach Earth from the Kuiper Belt. They would arrive with 12 hours to spare before the deadline. Do-hyun looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed the Vraxil fleet in orbit around Earth. Blue dots showed the hidden human fleet slowly creeping closer. The aliens had no idea they were surrounded. "How are the kinetic kill swarms?" he asked. An officer responded, "Deployed and waiting, sir. 3 million microdrones disguised as space debris. The Vraxil scanned them when they first arrived and dismissed them as junk. They have no idea each one is a weapon." Do-hyun nodded. The microdrones were brilliant. Each one was no bigger than a fist, but they could accelerate to 30% light speed. At that velocity, they hit with the force of a small nuclear bomb, and there were millions of them, scattered through the debris field around the Vraxil fleet. The aliens were sitting in the middle of a minefield and didn't even know it. At hour 70 of the countdown, Do-hyun received a message from Earth's government. "Admiral, the people are asking if we should surrender. They're scared. They don't want to lose any more cities." Do-hyun understood the fear. He felt it too, but he also felt something stronger. "Tell the people to have faith. Tell them that humanity is not done fighting. And tell them," he paused, "tell them that in 2 hours the Vraxil are going to regret they ever came to our star system." On the Vraxil flagship, Commander Thexazal was bored. The humans had put up a pathetic fight at first, but now they seemed broken. He had received several transmissions from Earth begging for mercy, offering surrender. It was almost disappointing. He had hoped for more entertainment. "Commander, should we accept their surrender early?" his second officer asked. Thexazal waved a clawed hand dismissively. "No, let them suffer the full 72 hours. It will make the lesson more memorable. Besides, I want to see if any of them try something foolish at the last moment." He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. The Vraxil had conquered 47 star systems. Humanity would be number 48. Just another primitive species learning its place in the galaxy. At hour 71, the hidden human fleet reached their positions. 120 dreadnoughts surrounded the Vraxil fleet in a perfect sphere. Still invisible, still waiting. Captain Minho sat in the pilot seat of the Indomitable, his hands steady on the controls. He thought about his squadron, the friends he had lost in the first battle. He thought about all the people who had died in New Seoul and the other cities. His communication system crackled. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim, stand by for Operation Payback." A pause. "When we strike hard. No mercy, no hesitation. They came to our home and murdered our people. Now we show them what humanity does to those who threaten our world." Minho checked his weapons one last time. Everything was green. The phase shift drive hummed quietly, keeping the ship invisible. He was positioned directly behind the Vraxil flagship. When the attack began, he would materialize inside their bridge. "Ready when you are, Admiral," he said softly. At hour 71 and 55 minutes, Earth sent one final message to the Vraxil fleet. It was broadcast on all channels in every language, translated into Vraxil using their own codes. The message was simple. "We decline your offer. Come closer if you dare." Thexazal laughed when he heard it. Foolish humans. They still thought they could fight. He ordered his fleet to tighten formation around Earth for the final bombardment. The ships moved closer together, packed tight. Perfect. Admiral Kim watched the Vraxil fleet cluster together. They were making this too easy. He opened the command channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships. Target acquired. Prepare to decloak on my mark." He thought about his wife and daughter, vaporized in New Seoul. He thought about the 300 million dead. He thought about the arrogant aliens who thought humans were weak. His voice was ice cold when he gave the order, "Operation Payback, execute, make them remember Earth, space." Itself seemed to tear apart as 120 human warships materialized out of nothing. They appeared in a perfect sphere around the Vraxil fleet, so close that the aliens had no room to maneuver. And at that exact moment, Captain Minho Choi pressed his trigger. The Indomitable materialized inside the Vraxil flagship's bridge, right behind Commander Thexazal. The last thing Thexazal saw before his world exploded in fire was a human face smiling at him through a view screen. The battle for Earth had just begun. And this time humanity was not the prey. The year was 2347. Earth had grown far beyond what anyone in the old days could imagine. 12 billion people called the blue planet home. Cities stretched high into the sky, and space stations orbited like silent guardians. Humans had also built colonies on Mars and Europa, pushing further into the solar system with each passing year. Admiral Do-Hyun Kim stood on the command deck of the orbital defense station Unity 1. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 9 years ago, and the memory still haunted him. Now, at 53 years old, he commanded Earth's entire orbital defense network. It was a job that kept him awake at night. That morning started like any other. Do-Hyun drank his coffee and watched the sun rise over the Pacific Ocean. The view from space never got old. Earth looked so peaceful from up here, so beautiful and blue. Then everything changed. Lieutenant Ji-won Lee burst into the command center, her face pale. She was young, barely 30. But she was the best intelligence officer Do-Hyun had ever worked with. Her hand shook as she handed him a data pad. "Admiral, we have a problem." "A big problem," her voice cracked. "I've been tracking strange signals for the past week. I finally decoded them an hour ago." Do-Hyun looked at the data. His blood ran cold. "These are military transmissions. Battle plans." He looked up at Ji-won. "Who sent these?" "Not who, sir. What? They're alien. And according to these messages, they're already on their way here." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it wasn't the peaceful first contact everyone had hoped for. Before Do-Hyun could respond, alarms screamed throughout the station. A junior officer shouted from his console, "Sir, multiple contacts just appeared at the L2 point. They just appeared out of nowhere." The main screen flickered to life. Do-Hyun's heart sank. 200 massive warships floated in space where nothing had been seconds before. They were huge, each one bigger than Earth's largest carriers. Their hulls were dark and covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with an evil light. The Vraxel Empire had arrived. A message came through on all frequencies. The translation software struggled with the alien language, but the meaning was clear. A harsh voice spoke, "Primitive humans, your resistance is noted and dismissed. We are the Vraxel Empire. We rule 47 star systems. You will submit to our authority, or we will break you." Do-Yun wanted to respond, wanted to negotiate, but the aliens didn't wait for an answer. The lead ship fired. A beam of pure energy lanced down from orbit. It struck New Seoul in South Korea. The city of 20 million people simply vanished in a flash of light. Then another beam hit São Paulo in Brazil, then Cairo in Egypt, then Mumbai in India. Do-Hyun watched in horror as 4 of Earth's greatest cities disappeared in moments. The death toll was already in the hundreds of millions, and the attack had just begun. "All defense platforms open fire," Do-Hyun ordered. His voice was steady even though his heart was breaking. His family lived in New Seoul, had lived in New Seoul. Earth's orbital weapons came alive. Missiles streaked toward the alien fleet. Railguns fired solid slugs at incredible speeds. Laser batteries carved lines of light through the darkness. It wasn't enough. The Vraxel ships had shields that shimmered blue when hit. Most of Earth's weapons simply bounced off or fizzled out. A few missiles got through and damaged some ships, but it was like throwing rocks at a tank. The aliens returned fire. One by one, Earth's defense platforms exploded. Brave men and women died at their posts, buying time for nothing. The battle was hopelessly one-sided. After 2 hours of slaughter, another message came from the Vraxel. "Humans, you have 72 hours to surrender. Transmit your submission on all channels. If you do not, we will destroy your entire species. This is your only warning." The alien fleet stopped firing and settled into orbit. They were confident, relaxed even. To them, this was already over. Humanity was just another primitive species to be conquered. Do-Hyun looked at the damage reports. 300 million dead or wounded in the first strike. 4 major cities gone. Half of Earth's orbital defenses destroyed. The planet's military forces were scattered and unprepared for an enemy from the stars. But Do-Hyun wasn't thinking about surrender. He was thinking about revenge. He called an emergency meeting in the secure conference room. Ji-won was there, along with Captain Minho Choi and Dr. Yoon-ji Park. Minho was a fighter pilot, the best in the fleet, known for his wild tactics and somehow always surviving. Yoon-ji was a scientist, brilliant but obsessed with weapons research that made other people nervous. "We can't fight them with what we have," Minho said bluntly. He had lost his squadron in the battle. "Good people, friends." His jaw was tight with anger. "Their shields are too strong. Their weapons are too powerful." "Then we use what they don't know about," Yoon-ji said quietly. All eyes turned to her. She pulled up a hologram display. "Project Ragnarok." Do-Hyun leaned forward. He knew about Ragnarok, but it was buried under so many layers of classified material that most people in the military didn't even know it existed. "For 30 years, we've been building a hidden fleet in the Kuiper Belt," Yoon-ji explained. 120 dreadnoughts, each one equipped with experimental weapons, phase shift drives that make them invisible, quantum torpedoes, kinetic kill swarms, neural warfare systems. Minho stared at her. "We have a secret fleet." "How did nobody know about this?" "Because we learned from history," Do-Hyun said grimly. "We always knew first contact might be hostile. So we prepared. We prepared for war even while we hoped for peace." Ji-won pulled up more data. "The Vraxel think we're primitive because their scans are based on old information. They saw Earth as it was in the early 2300s. They have no idea what we've really built." Do-Hyun stood and looked out at Earth below. His home, his world, the world the aliens thought they could just take. "Activate Project Ragnarok," he ordered. "All units. Full deployment. We have 72 hours to get ready." He turned back to his officers. His face was hard as stone. "The Vraxel want to break us. They want to make an example of humanity. They're about to learn something important." "What's that, sir?" Minho asked. Do-Hyun smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "That humans don't break. We break others." High above Earth, the Vraxel fleet waited in arrogant confidence. Commander Thexal sat in his command chair and laughed at the primitive broadcasts coming from the planet below. Humans begging for mercy. Humans crying over their dead. It was pathetic. He had no idea that his laughter would soon turn to screams. The trap was being set. The hunters had just become the hunted. And in 72 hours, the Vraxil Empire would learn the most important lesson in galactic history. Never underestimate humanity. The heart of the Empire that had dared to attack Earth. They were about to learn what happens. Vraxis Prime hung in space like a green jewel. It was beautiful from orbit. 3 continents, vast oceans, white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. 8 billion Vraxil called it home. It had never been attacked in 5,000 years of recorded history. That was about to change. The Vraxil had prepared for this moment. 300 warships guarded their homeworld. Orbital defense platforms ringed the planet in 3 layers. Energy shields covered major cities. Millions of ground troops stood ready. The High Council was confident. Even if the humans attacked, they could never break through these defenses. Grand Admiral Vexithar stood in the Planetary Defense Command Center, watching the displays. Every sensor was active. Every weapon system was charged. They were ready. All fleets report ready status, an officer reported. No sign of human forces in any nearby system. Vexithar nodded. Good. Perhaps the humans have finally learned wisdom. Perhaps they realize they cannot win here. He was wrong. 20 million kilometers away, invisible to every Vraxil sensor, the human fleet waited. Dr. Yoonji Park's Ghostmaker device had worked perfectly. 200 ships sat in phase-shifted space, ghosts waiting to become real. Admiral Do Yun Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the tactical display. Status report. All ships ready, sir. The Ghostmaker is holding steady. We can maintain phase shift for another 6 hours before we need to materialize. We won't need that long, Do Hyun said. He studied the Vraxil defenses. They were impressive, but they all faced outward, expecting an attack from normal space. No one was looking for an enemy that could appear anywhere. He opened the fleet channel. All ships, this is it. The final battle. We have 2 objectives. First, destroy the Vraxil military capability. Second, force their surrender without harming civilians. We are not here for revenge. We are here to end the war. He paused, thinking about the long journey from Earth. The friends lost. The cities destroyed. The lives shattered. They attacked us because they thought we were weak. Today we prove them wrong. Today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are survivors, and we protect what is ours. He looked at Captain Minho on another screen. Captain, your team knows what to do? Yes, sir. 50 ships will attack from the front, draw their attention. While they're focused on us, the rest of the fleet materializes inside their defensive perimeter. Minho grinned. It's the same trick we used at Earth. Let's see if they fall for it again. Begin the operation. All ships execute. 50 human ships materialized at the edge of the Vraxil defensive zone and immediately opened fire. Railgun slugs and missiles streaked toward the outer defense platforms. In the command center on Vraxis Prime, alarms screamed. Officers shouted reports. The displays lit up with red warning symbols. Human fleet detected. 50 warships at bearing 270, an officer shouted. Vexthar felt a moment of satisfaction. They had come, and they would die here. All fleets engage the enemy. Focus fire on their capital ships. Activate all defense platforms. The Vraxil fleet moved to intercept 300 ships against 50. It should have been an easy victory. The human ships began taking hits, their shields flaring under the concentrated fire. And then the trap closed. 150 human warships materialized inside the defensive perimeter. They appeared in a sphere around the Vraxil fleet and orbital platforms, so close that the aliens had no time to react. In the command center, chaos erupted. Impossible. Sensors show human ships everywhere, inside our defenses. How did they get there? Vexthar stared at the displays in disbelief. The humans had done it again. Somehow, impossibly, they had bypassed all of Vraxis Prime's defenses and appeared right where they would do the most damage. The human fleet opened fire, but this time, they were selective. Admiral Kim had given strict orders. The orbital defense platforms were military targets, fair game. The warships were legitimate enemies. But the planet itself, the cities below, the civilians, they were off limits. Phase shift torpedoes materialized inside Vraxil warships, crippling them from within. Railgun fire destroyed weapon systems and engines while avoiding reactor cores that might explode and cause collateral damage. It was surgical, precise, and absolutely devastating. The Vraxil tried to fight back, but they were caught between two human forces with no room to maneuver. Their own defensive platforms were in the way. Their ships crashed into each other trying to target the enemy. Lieutenant Ji-won Lee activated her final surprise. The virus she had planted in the Vraxil network months ago had spread everywhere. Sleeping, waiting. Now it woke up. Across the Vraxil fleet, systems began failing. Navigation went offline. Weapons targeting systems gave false information. Some ships received orders to fire on their own forces. The carefully coordinated defense turned into chaos. On the surface of Vraxis Prime, civilians watched the battle in the sky with growing horror. Flashes of light marked exploding ships. Debris rained down, burning up in the atmosphere. Their invincible fleet was being destroyed above their heads. In the High Council chambers, panic had replaced arrogance. Council members shouted at each other, blamed each other, demanded solutions that didn't exist. One councilor screamed, "Activate the planet killers! If we are to fall, let the humans fall with us." But Vexthar shook his head. The planet killers are offline. The human cyber attack disabled them hours ago. We never even noticed. The truth settled over the council like a death sentence. They had lost. Completely. Utterly. The humans had outplayed them at every turn. 2 hours into the battle, the Vraxil fleet was effectively destroyed. Of 300 warships, 200 were disabled or destroyed. The rest were damaged and fleeing. All the orbital defense platforms were silent, their weapon systems destroyed, and not a single shot had been fired at the planet's surface. The cities were intact. The civilians were unharmed. The humans had shown perfect restraint even in the heat of battle. Admiral Kim broadcast a message on all Vraxil frequencies. His face appeared on every screen on the planet. People of Vraxis Prime, your fleet is defeated. Your defenses are destroyed. Your planet is at our mercy. He paused. But we are not here to massacre civilians. We are not here for revenge. We are here to end a war that should never have started. He looked directly at the camera. Your leaders attacked Earth. They killed 300 million humans. They called us primitive and weak. They were wrong. But we will not repeat their mistakes. We will not become the monsters they were. Your High Council has 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If they refuse, we will dismantle every military installation on this planet. The choice is theirs. In the council chambers, the debate was brief. Grand Admiral Vexthar made the final argument. We have lost. But in losing, we have learned something valuable. The humans could have destroyed our cities. They could have killed millions in retaliation for what we did to Earth. They did not. They showed mercy when they had no reason to. He looked at the other council members, seeing fear and shame in their faces. We thought them primitive. We thought them weak. We were wrong about everything. They are stronger than us, more advanced than us, and somehow, despite what we did to them, they are more honorable than us. He stood. I will go to their flagship. I will sign the surrender. And I will beg them to teach us how to be better than we were. 45 minutes later, a shuttle left Vraxis Prime carrying Grand Admiral Vexthar and the High Council. It approached the Defiance under a white flag of truce. Admiral Kim met them in the main hangar bay. Around him stood Captain Minho, Dr. Yoonji, Lieutenant Jiwon, and Major Hana, the heroes of humanity's war, the ones who had turned certain defeat into absolute victory. Vexthar walked forward and, to everyone's surprise, knelt before the human admiral. We surrender unconditionally, he said. We accept full responsibility for the war. We will make reparations. We will face justice. We will do whatever is required to make amends for what we have done. He looked up at Do-hyun. But I must ask, why did you show mercy? After what we did to your world, you would have been justified in destroying ours. Do-hyun helped the old Vraxil to his feet. Because we fight to protect, not to destroy. Because we remember what it means to be human. And because the galaxy is watching. We want them to know that humanity can be fierce in battle but fair in victory. He gestured to a table where surrender documents waited. The war is over. The Vraxil Empire is over. What comes next depends on you. You can choose to learn from this and build something better. Or you can cling to your old ways and face isolation. Vexithar signed the documents with a steady hand. The other council members followed. When it was done, the war that had begun with the bombing of Earth ended in the heart of the enemy's homeworld. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. Humanity had done the impossible. A species barely 2 centuries into space travel had defeated an empire that had ruled for millennia. They had done it with superior technology, brilliant tactics, and unbreakable will. But more importantly, they had won with honor. They had shown that strength and mercy could exist together. As the human fleet began its journey back to Earth, Captain Minho looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had earned its place among the galactic community.